Greetings, Lumen students. It is week 9 and this is your Monday video. I'm glad to be back. I have some spelling words for you. Put in my pocket chart. Let's go over these just really quick before we get started on the action items of the week, which are prepositions. So here's our homophones for today. We have main, and main. And I'm sure you know what each of these mean. Main meaning major or most important. Maine, the northernmost state on the east coast. Or mane, meaning curls or the hair found on the head and shoulders of a horse or a male lion. Ordinance and ordinance. Okay. An ordinance is a rule or a law. An ordinance is weapons. Interesting. Here we've got pain and pain. P-A-I-N is discomfort or something that hurts. Pain is a sheet of glass, like a window pane. Here we have seen and seen. Seen as in a setting or a location where a book or a movie takes place. Seen meaning I have seen, the past tense of the verb see. We have tear and tear. The first tear is T-A-R-E, meaning some wheat, like a weed that is used in the scriptures, wheat against the tares. Okay, the wheat and the tares grow up together till the last days when the tares are separated out. And then to tear is to rip or slash, to slit or split. Next we have lay or lay. This is to place something on a surface, okay, to lay it down. Then we have a lay, meaning what word am I looking for? A garland of flowers, typically associated with Hawaii. Next we have waist versus waist. Waist is the place about the middle of an object that can be measured in inches. Or trash, a waste. Down here we've got knot, and knot. The first one is to tie or loop, to tether or secure, K-N-O-T. Knot, an adverb that negates something. Or not, nothing, zip, zero, nil, N-A-U-G-H-T. And finally, on our last row, we have verses versus verses, V-E-R-S-U-S. So the first is groups of lines in a song or in a poem. Those are verses, scripture verses. Or verses meaning against, the two teams that are playing against each other. Or finally, rain, rain, and rain. Rain is water that falls from the sky, R-A-I-N. Reign, R-E-I-G-N, is to rule, time in office or power. You can match the G in that with regal or government. That means reign. And rein, R-E-I-N, is a bridle, a harness, or a strap, like a horse's rein. Right, those are our awesome spelling words. We'll have some fun this week playing games with them. Now I'm going to flip this around to pull up some prepositions. As this week for your action items, you're going to be studying and learning about prepositions and, prepositional phrases. So I want to start out with a picture book that illustrates how prepositional phrases are used. They are wonderful in showing relationships between things. And I have a book, it's a gorgeous cover. This is called Cinder-Eyed Cats, illustrated and written by Eric Roman. So let's talk about this. There are some prepositions and prepositional phrases in this book, and we're also going to think about our own. Okay. Right. As the book begins, you can tell something's unusual about this story because the boy is climbing up to get his boat. Where is the boat located, students? Can you see a prepositional phrase that you could use along with that? Above the dock. How about in? In is one. In the air. Okay? It'd be almost impossible to describe what's happening on this page without using a preposition. Where is this boat and why is it so different from normal? Here they go, sailing, what? Across the sea. Next to or beside a seagull. Okay, I have beside as a prepositional phrase. Again, it shows relationships between nouns. Where things are located. If you can look off in the distance, where are they heading, students? How about toward? Here's another preposition, an island. And here he goes. How would you describe what's happening with the anchor? Okay, it's being lowered beneath the water. Okay. We could say being thrown off the side of the boat, thrown over into the water. And here's our island. Can you see a little clue about what might be on this island hiding in the trees? And again, I used a prepositional phrase, in the trees, to even describe that to you. Here you can see them sticking out a little bit better. Mixed in among the leaves, you happen to see some cattails. These aren't regular house cats. In faraway lands. So the very first words that we hear in the story are prepositional phrases. In faraway lands. When twilight falls on fair and windswept days. He's building a big sand fish. Now, how would you describe the boy? What's he doing? He's leaning next to or near, okay, the sand. He's laying against the side of the fish. And what can we see coming? Cats like velvet shadows move. And where are those cats located? Are they behind the boy? No, because then we wouldn't see the shadows are behind him. But where are they? They're in front of him, aren't they? Another preposition. They're coal fire eyes ablaze. These kind of cats are big cats. These are tigers. They're beautiful. And on those bright and moonlight nights, while all the world's asleep, what is happening? The sandfish just came alive, and now it's above the cats. It's in the air. Creatures wake beneath the waves. Beneath the waves is a prepositional phrase, and rise up from the deep. And without being able to use prepositions, this story would not exist. It would not make sense. What are these fish doing? It seems that they're floating above them in the air as well. The moonlight whirls, the stars burst out, the sand and wind and ocean sway, and from the grip of earth and sea, the creatures make their getaway. Wouldn't that be amazing? We have such a strong understanding of how things are supposed to work, where things are supposed to be located in relationship to us, that when that changes, I would be a little freaky, wouldn't it? Boats are not supposed to be above us in the air. Fish are not supposed to be above us in the air. It's just strange and almost magical. Look at the cats. Cats are among the sea creatures, next to eels and fish. Throughout the night, the tunas whirl, the starfish weave and wiggle, and as the sardines dance, their shiny, brine-filled bellies jiggle. Growls and laughter echo in the deepest dark of night, and fishes round the fire spark like cat's eyes in the light. How would you describe this scene? The tigers are circling around the fire. The fish are circling above the cats in the air. Everybody's making a big whirling dance like a whirlpool, only on land, not in the water. Lots of good prepositions right on this page. The boy's on top of a pyramid of big cats as the whales sail overhead. How crazy is that? Heading towards the sea again. And suddenly they're gone. Quiet now, the sea blue sky, no dancing on the shore, until the twilight falls again, and the moon comes round once more. His feet are resting on top of his brothers, perhaps. And the cats in a pile beside each other, against, among, between. As the boy sails away home. Got excited. I'm getting on to our next book all of a sudden. Hey students, so prepositions are really fun and really critical. And I think you're going to enjoy doing your action items related to that today. For our history studies, I've got something a little bit different. We're moving on to studying ancient Rome. And each day I want to tell you a little bit about a Roman emperor. We've got the good, the bad, the ugly. There are all kinds of interesting and unique Roman emperors, from Cincinnatus to more famous ones like Julius Caesar or Augustus or Constantine, Nero. We're going to learn just a little snippet about each of these famous Roman emperors as we continue our history stories. We're going to start at the beginning, though, of course, with the first Roman king, who was, if I can find it, Romulus and Remus. Wait a minute. Here we go. Hey. Assyria, this is a little introduction, which is a good background for us as we have been learning about these ancient civilizations. Assyria was a great kingdom. It was conquered by Babylon. Babylon was an awesome empire, conquered by Persia. Persia and Greece were great empires, conquered by Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great built his own huge kingdom, as we have learned about, but then he died, and his generals broke the kingdom up into pieces. So that's kind of how it goes in the ancient world. One big guy arises until he's broken down and taken over by someone else. One king comes along, wins lots of battles, builds a big empire, and then another king from another country does the same, and it happens over and over again. So you'll be surprised to learn that Rome starts the same pattern. But this is a bigger and stronger empire than we have learned about before. It lasted for hundreds and hundreds of years. Almost 1,000. And even 1,000 years after this empire fell, people are still learning its language, reading its books, copying its government. And that empire is Rome. First, Rome was just a tiny village in the hills of Italy. Go west from Greece and you'll see a piece of land that looks like a boot jutting out into the Mediterranean Sea. And the people who lived in Rome told this story about how they got their beginnings. Once upon a time, a great king by the name of Numitor had 2 twin grandsons. Strong, healthy baby boys whose names were Romulus and Remus. But Numitor also had a wicked younger brother who plotted against him and stole his throne. The new evil king wanted to get rid of anyone who might claim to be the rightful king. "These babies will grow up to take my throne," he said. "Throw them in the Tiber River." So a servant took the boys down to the Tiber River, but she felt sorry for them and put them in a basket and pushed them out into the current. The basket floated along the river until it got stuck in the root of a fig tree. That might have been the end of the 2 boys, but a wolf heard them crying. She peered around the trunk of the fig tree and saw the basket with the babies in it. And this wolf had cubs of her own, She felt pity for the 2 hungry babies, and she tugged the basket back up to her den, and there she raised the babies with her own wolf cubs as her own. One day a shepherd out looking for a lost lamb heard a coo and then a gurgle from a brush surrounding the wolf's den. He pushed some branches aside, and there he saw 2 fat, happy baby boys playing naked with the wolf cubs. The shepherd and his wife had no children, and so he took the boys home, and the 2 of them raised the boys to be tall, handsome young men. When Romulus and Remus were grown, they went back to the fig tree where their basket had landed so many years ago. They looked around and saw 7 hills. "This is the perfect place to build a town," they said. A town on top of these 7 hills would be hard to attack. So they began to build a town. Romulus declared himself the king of this new town and put himself in charge of building a city wall around it. "This wall will keep us safe," he said. "Anyone who climbs over my wall will instantly be killed." Remus was upset. He's like, "Why are you in charge? We're building this town together. Why should Romulus be the ruler of it? I want to be the leader." So he walked up to the wall and vaulted over top of it. "What kind of wall is this? Anyone can get over it," he said. "How are you going to keep the town safe?" Romulus was so angry that he drew his sword, charged at his brother, and killed him on the spot. Then he named the town Rome after himself, and he became Rome's first king. Wow, pretty great story of how they got started, right? One boy kills his brother, we're good to go. It's kind of interesting how that story reminds me of elements of other stories that we have learned about. Of course, Moses in the scriptures was put in a basket and sent down the river. So, interesting kind of legend. Right, as I finish up, I'm going to do something a little bit new and different, students, in that I want to read you a story. This is a really interesting story, and that it goes along with the 7 wonders that we have been learning about. Okay. Except this isn't the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Instead, the title of this book is The 7 Wonders of Sassafras Springs. Where in the heck is Sassafras Springs? Doesn't sound like a place that would have 7 wonders, does it? Well, we're going to read just the first beginning, the first chapter, to learn how it all started. Sometimes extraordinary things begin in ordinary places. A fancy-dancy butterfly starts out in a plain little cocoon. A great big apple tree grows from a tiny brown speck of a seed. And the wonder started right on our own front porch on a hot summer night. I would have forgotten on the spot if it hadn't been for what got started then and kept on going. Who knows? Maybe Columbus decided to look for a new world one hot summer night when he got tired of staring at the same old barn. Or maybe one evening after supper, Balboa stood up and said, "Excuse me now, folks. I'm going to go search for the Pacific Ocean." There was no chance of seeing an ocean in Sassafras Springs, which is set smack dab in the center of the country. Though a dip in Liberty Creek was welcome on a boiling hot day, to my mind it was a poor excuse for a body of water. Shoot, it wasn't even a dribble on the big map of the United States that hung on the schoolhouse wall. Red Hawk, Coy, and Iron Valley all had dots on the map, but not Sassafras Springs, Missouri. We might as well have been invisible, yet there I was, sitting on the front porch with Pa and Aunt Pretty. The chores were done, our bellies were full, and the mosquitoes hadn't worked up much of an appetite yet. Aunt Pretty sat in her high-back rocker, crocheting some lacy thing as usual, though for the life of me I couldn't make out what it was meant to be. I just hoped it wasn't intended for me. Pa whittled on a stick, and I was staring hard at a drawing in a book. It was a first-rate book with lots of pictures in it. Miss Collins, the school teacher, gave it to me on the last day of school for getting the best marks in geography. My mind was a million miles away when suddenly my aunt said, "Eben McAllister, you've had your nose in that book so long I forgot what you look like. Wake up and see the world." I gazed out at the familiar white fence, the faded red barn, the yellow clay road. pair of fireflies blinked over Aunt Pretty's peony bed. Our horses, Pat and Murph, were in the barn. Mabel and Mert were milked. The chickens had gone to bed a long time ago. My dog Sal thumped her tail, most likely hoping I would stir up some excitement. She should have known better. "Nothing to see," I said. Went back to my book. Sal rolled on her side and yawned. "You'd think someone would have something interesting to say about something," Aunt Pretty said. "Living with the two of you is like living alone. I might as well talk to myself." Though I didn't say it, Aunt Pretty did talk to herself all day long. There was no picnic taking care of Pa and me. She moved in when Ma died 4 years ago and did all she could. Still was lonely for her because Aunt Pretty could talk your arm off while Pa and I weren't ones to waste words. "What's so interesting about that book anyway?" Aunt Pretty asked. "It's about the 7 wonders of the world," I told her. "They built these amazing things way back in ancient Greece and Egypt and places." Pa blew the shavings off his stick. "What things?" he said. I showed him the book, and he took his time studying the drawings. He read the names out loud, and they sounded fine. The Great Pyramid at Giza, the Colossus of Rhodes, the statue of Zeus, the giant lighthouse at Alexandria, the mausoleum at Halicarnassus, the temple of Artemis at Ephesus, the hanging gardens at Babylon. Big things, wonderful things. "Yeah, we don't have anything like that around Sassafras Springs," I pointed out. "We do have the wash hanging on the line every Monday," Aunt Pretty chuckled. "You could call it the Hanging Laundry of Sassafras Springs and put it in your book. There's your wonder." I tried to make her understand. "Aunt Pretty, these were important things in faraway lands." Aunt Pretty sniffed loudly. "Seems to me we have lighthouses right here in the good old US of A." "Not like this one. This light could be seen for 30 miles. Fires burn behind the eyes, see?" I held up the page with the drawing of the lighthouse at Alexandria. My aunt barely even glanced at it. Pa calmly scraped away at his stick of wood. "I guess I could put some eyes up on the side of the barn, but I'm afraid fires in there would scare the horses." I didn't give him the satisfaction of a comeback. "I suppose we all have notions that others might find peculiar," Aunt Pretty said. "Everyone except you, Aunt Pretty." Pa's voice was teasing-like. "Oh, hush up, Cole, or I'll bake up a batch of Aunt Dessie's biscuits for breakfast." They both chuckled. "What are they?" I asked. "Your great Aunt Dessie always got her recipes all mixed up. She could never remember whether it was a cup of flour and a pinch of salt, or a pinch of flour and a cup of salt. So our biscuits were as hard as rocks," Aunt Pretty exclaimed. "No wonder Uncle Jonah didn't have a tooth left in his head," Pa said. And they exploded into laughter, though going without teeth didn't seem too funny to me. "Yep, Dessie's biscuits were downright wonders," Pa added, and he and my aunt laughed even louder. "That is not what I mean." I was getting seriously annoyed. "I'm talking about things so special folks would travel all around the world to see them." Aunt Pretty put down her crocheting and sighed. "Even, why do you spend so much time thinking about those foreign places?" "Because someday I'm going to see them." I told her I'm going around the world on a tramp steamer, like the fellow who wrote this book. Aunt Pretty huffed. "Wouldn't that be a scandal? Leaving your pa alone with this work, leaving the farm to go to rack and ruin." "Eben's free to lead his own life once he's grown up," Pa said, "if the farm doesn't suit him." I stared at the barn for a spell. Why do all the barns in Sassafras Springs look the same? To this day, I don't know why I was in such a complaining frame of mind, but I was. Why isn't there a round one, or a blue one, or one with a tower? Aunt Pretty's crochet hook hung in midair. A round, blue barn with a tower? Now I have heard of everything. What would people think? Well, maybe they'd think Sassafras Springs is a place we're seeing, instead of just passing us by. Sassafras Springs is as good a place to live as any I've heard of. Aunt Pretty's voice was firm. We'd look silly with a pyramid out in our cornfield. I don't know, just think, Pretty, we could charge folks to see it, Pa joked. You could sell the tourist lemonade and your good apple pie. My aunt laughed. I did not. Pa eyeballed his whittling stick again. That Egypt looks to be a mighty dry place. I wonder how they grow the crops to live on. They've done fine for all these years, I snapped back. A lopsided moon popped up in the dusky sky, but it didn't shed light on any wonders. Maybe our buildings are lacking in originality, Pa admitted. Still, I can't believe there aren't a few wonders around here somewhere. Maybe they're a little smaller than that pyramid, so you just haven't noticed them yet. I didn't mean to sigh, as giant a sigh as I did right then. The light was fading fast, and Aunt Pretty's crochet hook was flying like a fury. Pa stared out at the farm with a faraway look in his eyes. Annie Mae always wanted to go up to Silver Peak, Colorado, to see Cousin Molly and her husband Eli. She wanted to see a real, honest-to-goodness tall mountain, the kind of mountain with snow on top. I sure wish I would have taken her before she died. I swallowed the lump of sorrow I felt whenever my ma's name came up. Sal got up and pressed her chin on my knee. We all sat silent, even Aunt Pretty, until Pa asked, "Does that book tell what a wonder really is?" I thrummed through the pages back to the introduction. Here it is. It says, "A marvel, that which arouses awe, astonishment, surprise, or admiration." Pa scratched his cheek with the dull side of his knife. "I've seen one or two things to admire around here. Maybe if you put out a little effort, you would too." I closed the book and leaned back on both elbows. "Yeah, what's the point? I just think there's no use searching the world for wonders when you can't see the marvels right under your own nose." "Amen," said Aunt Pretty. Wasn't enough to satisfy me, not in the mood I was in. "Just what marvels are you talking about?" Pa stood up and started pacing around, rubbing the back of his neck the way he always did when he was pondering something important. "Eva, I have a deal for you. You find yourself 7 wonders right here in Sassafras Springs, and I'll buy you a ticket to go see Molly and Eli on that mountain." I almost fell off the porch. So did Aunt Pretty. "I'll buy himself?" she asked, rolling her eyes. "An 11-year-old boy staying with folks who are practically strangers out there in the wilderness?" Pa ignored her. "Of course, like you say, you probably can't find 7 amazing things in all of Sassafras Springs, but you could try." My mind was racing. A train ticket to Colorado? When? "Reckon there'd be time right before the harvest." "Can I enter this contest?" Aunt Pretty asked. "The deal's between me and my boy." Pa rose from the chair and disappeared into the house. "Colorado!" Aunt Pretty shook her head. "Why, I would have been tickled pink just to go over to St. Clair when I was a little girl." I've never been able to picture my aunt as a girl. Her name, Purity, got shortened to Pretty years ago. The name stuck, though she'd added a few pounds over the years. Pleasingly plump, as she said. Pa always told her she was still in her prime. "You're a fine figure of a woman, little sister," he'd say, and that made Aunt Pretty blush every time. The door squealed as Pa came back outside and handed me a pad of paper. "You can keep track of your wonders here." "How long do I have?" 7 days seems fair," said Pa, settling back down. "Long as it took for God to create this world and take a day off." A wonder a day? I don't know. At that moment, 7 of anything sounded like a lot, especially since if Sassafras Springs had wonders, they hadn't showed up so far. Still, I could already hear that train whistle calling. Could already see those tracks pointing toward the white-capped mountains of Colorado. "I'll start tomorrow." I guess Columbus said something like that once, only he said it in Italian. Okay, students, I'll give you a little peek into Even's search as we read this book at the end of each video for the next little while. 7 wonders in the small town of Sassafras Springs. We're going to see if he's able to find anything like that. Good luck with your action items, and we'll catch you next tomorrow. Thank you.